I stood at the back of the ballroom, watching my father work the room like he owned it. Which, in a way, he did. Robert Chen had that effect on people. CEO of Chen Manufacturing, self-made millionaire, businessman of the year according to the gleaming trophy waiting for him on stage. 400 of the city's most influential people had gathered at the Grand Cascade Hotel to celebrate him tonight. Nobody noticed me. I made sure of that. The lighting crew had my credentials checked twice. Maya Williams, Senior Environmental Compliance Officer, EPA. Not Maya Chen. I changed my name 8 years ago, right after he threw me out. It wasn't about hiding, not really. It was about building something he couldn't touch, couldn't claim, couldn't take credit for. My phone buzzed. A text from Director Morrison. You're clear. We've got your back. I watched my father take the stage. The applause was deafening. He smiled that smile I remembered from childhood, the one that meant he was about to sell you something. His tuxedo probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Everything about him screamed success, power, control. Thank you, he said, waiting for the crowd to settle. This is truly an honor. You know, they say behind every successful man is a great woman. In my case, it was the absence of a foolish one. Laughter rippled through the room. I felt my jaw tighten. My daughter, he continued, and my heart stopped. She wanted to save the world. Hug trees for a living, she said. Can you imagine? More laughter. I told her, Maya, if you want to save the world, do it on your own dime. Don't come crying to me when you're living in poverty. He paused for effect. She chose the trees. I chose prosperity. I think we can all see who made the right choice. The audience ate it up. I saw heads nodding, people smiling. Several executives I recognized from the manufacturing sector raised their glasses in solidarity. To them, I was just another naive millennial who didn't understand how the real world worked. I closed my eyes. Just for a second. 8 years ago. My apartment, the tiny one near campus. I'd just been accepted to graduate school for environmental science. My father stood in my doorway, holding the acceptance letter I'd foolishly shown him. This, he said, waving the paper. This is what you want to waste your life on? It's not a waste, Dad. Environmental compliance is important. Companies need people who understand profit margins, not tree huggers who cry about emissions standards. He tore the letter in half. You want to do this, you do it alone. Don't expect a dime from me. I wasn't asking for money. Good. Because you're not getting any. And when you fail, when you're drowning in student debt and can't find a job, don't come crawling back. He dropped the torn letter on my floor. You're choosing to be a loser, Maya. That's on you. The door slammed. I didn't cry until I heard his car drive away. I opened my eyes. On stage, my father was still talking, building to his big finish. Something about innovation and legacy and the American dream. Director Morrison stood near the side entrance, giving me a subtle nod. The FBI agents were in position. 2 at each exit, dressed like regular attendees. Special Agent Reeves was somewhere in the crowd with a body camera rolling. Everything was ready. 14 months of investigation, hundreds of hours of documentation, all leading to this moment. My father raised his trophy. So here's to hard work, to making tough choices, and to never apologizing for success. The crowd erupted. Standing ovation. Cameras flashing. He was eating it up, soaking in the adoration. I started walking. Straight down the center aisle. People turned to look as I passed, confused. One of the event coordinators tried to intercept me. Ma'am, the ceremony isn't over. I kept walking. Up the stairs. Across the stage. My heels clicked on the polished wood, each step echoing in the suddenly quiet ballroom. My father's smile froze when he saw me. For a split second, I saw recognition flicker across his face. Then confusion. Then something that might have been fear. I stopped 3 feet from him. Extended my hand. The microphone, please. Maya? His voice cracked slightly. What are you doing here? The microphone, I repeated, louder this time. My voice carried across the silent room. He looked at the audience, then back at me. Calculating. He was always calculating. Slowly, he handed it over. I think some part of him was still convinced he could control this situation. I turned to face the crowd. 400 faces stared back at me. Some curious, some annoyed at the interruption, some already pulling out their phones to record. Good evening, I said. For those who don't know me, I'm Maya Chen. The tree hugger my father just told you about. A nervous laugh from somewhere in the back. My father stepped closer, hand outstretched. Sweetheart. This isn't the time. I moved away from his reach, keeping the microphone. Actually, Dad, since you brought up my work in your speech, I think it's the perfect time. These people should know what this tree hugger really does. I could see him processing, trying to figure out my angle. His PR smile was slipping. I work for the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm a senior compliance officer. I paused, letting that sink in. My job is to investigate companies that violate federal environmental laws. Someone in the front row shifted uncomfortably. I saw Senator Michaels, one of my father's golf buddies, whisper something to the person next to him. For the past 14 months, I continued, I've been the lead investigator on a case involving illegal industrial waste disposal. A company that's been dumping toxic chemicals into the Riverside watershed for the past 5 years. My father's face had gone pale. Maya, I don't know what you think you're doing. 237 families live downstream from the contamination site, I said, speaking over him. 31 children have tested positive for elevated lead levels. 12 adults have been diagnosed with cancer clusters that epidemiologists directly link to the toxins in their water supply. The room was dead silent now. Every phone was out, recording. This would be on social media in minutes. I pulled out my tablet, connected it to the presentation screen behind us. The first slide appeared. Satellite images of the Chen manufacturing facility, dated and time-stamped. Chen Manufacturing's waste treatment facility, I explained. According to federal permits, all industrial byproducts should be processed here before discharge. I clicked to the next image. These thermal imaging photos show the treatment facility has been offline for 5 years. The equipment hasn't run since 2020. Click. This is the drainage system that runs directly from the manufacturing floor to the river. 3 separate discharge points, all hidden under vegetation planted specifically to obscure aerial surveillance. My father grabbed my arm. You have no right. I pulled away, hard. Don't touch me. Security moved forward, but I held up my hand. It's fine. Let him stand there. Everyone should see this. Next slide. Chemical composition reports. Trichloroethylene, benzene, cadmium, lead compounds. All discharged at levels between 300 and 800 times the legal limit. Click. Here are the falsified compliance reports submitted to the EPA over the past 5 years. Notice the signature at the bottom? I zoomed in. My father's signature, clear as day. Each report claims full compliance with all environmental regulations. Each report is a federal crime. This is slander, my father hissed. I'll sue you for everything. With what money? I turned to face him directly. You asked earlier how I could afford to save the world on my own dime. Did you know the EPA has a whistleblower protection program? A reward system for cases that result in significant recoveries? His eyes widened slightly. I didn't need your money, Dad. I never did. I put myself through school. Graduated top of my class. Built my career without your name, without your connections, without your approval. I stepped closer. And while I was doing that, I was also documenting every single violation your company committed. Photographs, water samples, testimony from workers you paid under the table to keep quiet. Click. The next slide showed sealed indictments, the federal seal clearly visible. 14 months ago, I submitted my initial findings to the Department of Justice. 6 months ago, they opened a formal criminal investigation. 3 weeks ago, a federal grand jury returned indictments on 17 counts. The room erupted. Gasps, people standing, someone dropped a glass. My father stood frozen, staring at the screen. You're lying, he said, but his voice had no conviction. Am I? I looked past him, to the exits. Special Agent Reeves, could you confirm, please? A man in the third row stood up, showing his FBI credentials. Special Agent David Reeves, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I can confirm that. Miss Chen's statements are accurate. This event is being recorded for evidentiary purposes. More gasps. People were standing now, some trying to leave, others pressing forward. My father looked around wildly, searching for an escape route that didn't exist. Tonight wasn't about your award, Dad. I kept my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking. This is your formal notification of federal indictment. Charges include violation of the Clean Water Act, falsification of federal documents, conspiracy to commit fraud, and reckless endangerment. I clicked to the final slide. Criminal penalties. Fines up to $50 million. Prison terms up to 20 years per count. Maya. His voice broke. I'm your father. Yes, I said quietly. You are. You're also a man who poisoned 31 children because treating your waste properly would cut into your profit margins. I gave you life. He was shouting now, desperate. Everything you are, you owe to me. Everything I am, I built in spite of you. I handed the microphone to the event coordinator standing nearby, stunned into silence. My father lunged forward, grabbing my shoulders. You can't do this. You're my daughter. You're supposed to. Support you? Stand by you? I pulled away from his grip. Like you supported me? Like you stood by me when I chose a career you didn't approve of? Security was moving in now, along with the FBI agents. Special Agent Reeves reached the stage first. Robert Chen, he said, showing his badge. I need you to come with us, please. Wait. My father looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in 8 years. Maya, please. I have money. We can fix this. I'll pay the fines, I'll clean up the site, just. Please don't do this. I thought about that moment 8 years ago. The torn acceptance letter on my floor. His words. You're choosing to be a loser. You taught me that business is business, I said. You taught me that you can't let emotions cloud your judgment. You taught me that sometimes you have to make hard choices and never apologize for them. I picked up his trophy from where he'd set it down. Read the inscription, Excellence in Leadership. I'm just applying the lessons you taught me, Dad. I set the trophy back down and walked off the stage. Behind me, I heard Special Agent Reeves reading my father his rights. The crowd was chaos, people shouting questions, cameras everywhere, the event coordinator trying desperately to regain control. I didn't look back. Director Morrison met me at the side exit. Hell of a way to serve an indictment, she said. He made it public, I replied. I just followed his lead. Outside, the air smelled like rain. The parking lot lights cast everything in orange and shadow. I could still hear the commotion from inside the ballroom, muffled by the heavy doors. My phone was already blowing up. News alerts. Social media notifications. A text from my college roommate, "Oh my God, are you okay?" Another text, this one from a number I didn't recognize. "Miss Chen, this is Patricia Rodriguez. My daughter is one of the children affected by the contamination. Thank you. Thank you so much." I sat down on the curb, not caring about my dress. My hands were still shaking. Adrenaline crash. Probably. Director Morrison sat down next to me. You know the lawyers are going to tear into your methods. They'll say it was entrapment. That you engineered this confrontation. Let them, I said. I followed every protocol. I recused myself from the initial investigation. I brought in outside auditors. Everything by the book. Except the part where you showed up at his award ceremony and publicly destroyed him. He's the one who brought me into his speech. I pointed out. I was there in my official capacity as an EPA representative. He's the one who made it personal. She smiled. The prosecutors are going to love you. A few fat raindrops started falling. We should probably move, but I couldn't quite bring myself to stand up yet. Can I ask you something? Director Morrison said. Was any part of this about revenge? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. Or. Not primarily. When I started investigating, I didn't even know it was his company. We got an anonymous tip about discharge violations, and I pulled up the permits, and there was his name, and I thought. I trailed off. You thought what? I thought, of course. Of course it would be him. Of course the man who told me caring about the environment was worthless would be the same man poisoning people's water supply. It was almost funny. In a horrible way. But you could have handed the case to someone else. I tried. I admitted. I went to you, remember? I told you I had a conflict of interest. And I told you that your personal connection to the subject didn't disqualify you, as long as you followed procedure. So I did. I followed every single procedure. I triple-checked every piece of evidence. I brought in external verification for everything. I made damn sure that when we brought charges, they would stick. More rain. We'd definitely need to move soon. Those kids, I said quietly. 31 kids with lead poisoning. 12 adults with cancer. 237 families who can't drink their own tap water. They needed someone to fight for them. They needed someone who wouldn't back down, who wouldn't be bought off or intimidated. And you needed to prove your father wrong. I looked at her. Can't both things be true? She stood up, offered me her hand. Come on. Let's get you out of the rain. You've got a long few months ahead of you. Depositions, testimony, media circus. I let her pull me to my feet. My dress was definitely ruined, mascara probably running. I must have looked like a disaster. Worth it, though, I said. Yeah? Yeah. We made it to her car just as the rain really started coming down. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the messages. Most were supportive. A few were vicious. One was from my college advisor, Dr. Patterson. I always knew you'd do important work. Proud of you, Maya. Another from a former classmate. Your dad is all over Twitter. Number Chen manufacturing is trending. Holy shit. I clicked on the hashtag. Videos from the gala were everywhere. Someone had live-streamed the entire confrontation. The clip of my father saying, "I gave you life," and me responding about the 31 poisoned children had already been viewed 2 million times. You're going viral, Director Morrison noted, glancing at my screen. Great, I muttered. That's exactly what I wanted. But as I scrolled through the comments, I saw something that made me pause. A woman had posted, "My brother works at Chen Manufacturing. He told me about the dumping years ago but was too scared to report it. Thank you for having the courage we didn't." Another, This is what real environmental justice looks like. Not just policy but accountability. And another, to everyone saying she betrayed her father, she protected 31 children. That's not betrayal. That's heroism. My throat tightened. I hadn't thought about it like that. I'd been so focused on the investigation, on building the case, on making sure everything was airtight. I hadn't really considered what it would mean to people outside the immediate victims. You okay? Director Morrison asked. Yeah, I said. I think I am. She drove me home in silence. The rain was really coming down now, sheets of water that made the city lights blur into watercolor streaks. By the time we reached my apartment, I was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. Get some rest, she said as I got out. And Maya? What you did tonight? That took guts. Not everyone could face down their parent like that, even for the right reasons. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Inside my apartment, I kicked off my heels and collapsed onto the couch. My phone was still buzzing. I should probably turn it off, but something made me check the messages one more time. There was a new one from a law firm I didn't recognize. Miss Chen, we represent several of the families affected by the Chen manufacturing contamination. We'd like to discuss your testimony in the forthcoming civil suits. Please contact us at your earliest convenience. Civil suits. Of course. The criminal indictment was just the beginning. There would be years of litigation, probably. Years of my father's face in the news, of people asking me questions, of reliving this over and over. Was it worth it? I thought about Patricia Rodriguez's daughter. About the other 30 kids. About the families who'd been drinking poisoned water for 5 years while my father bought Italian leather furniture for his office and drove a car that cost more than most people's houses. Yeah. It was worth it. I pulled up my photos, scrolling back 8 years. There was a picture I'd kept, though I wasn't sure why. Me, at my graduate school orientation, standing in front of the EPA building in Washington, D.C. I was smiling, bright-eyed, naive in a way that made my chest ache now. I'd taken that photo the day after my father threw me out. Sent it to him with the caption, "Doing it on my own dime. Watch me." He never responded. But tonight in that ballroom, with 400 witnesses and federal agents and cameras rolling, he'd finally seen me. Really seen me. Not as the disappointing daughter who chose trees over profit, but as the woman who chose 31 poisoned children over her own father's freedom. I'd waited 8 years for him to see me. And when he finally did, I made damn sure it was unforgettable. My phone buzzed again. Another message. This one from an unknown number. "This is Tom Williams, reporter for the Chronicle. We'd like to interview you about tonight's events. Your story is important, and..." I turned my phone off. The story wasn't about me. It was about 237 families who deserved clean water. It was about 31 kids who deserved a childhood without lead poisoning. It was about a system that was supposed to protect people from exactly this kind of corporate negligence. And if bringing down my father's empire was what it took to fix that system, even just a little bit, then I'd do it again. Every single time. Outside, the rain continued falling. Washing the streets clean, at least for tonight. By morning, the news cycle would have moved on to the next scandal, the next outrage, the next viral moment. But those families would still need clean water. Those kids would still need medical treatment. And I'd still need to testify, to build cases, to fight. Because that's what tree huggers do. We fight for the things that can't fight for themselves. We stand up to people who think profit margins matter more than human lives. We do it on our own dimes, with our own courage, without apology. And sometimes, if we're very lucky and very brave, we win. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 8 years, I felt something close to peace. The checkmate had been set the day he threw me out. He just didn't know it until tonight.